Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to the channel RPG with DBJ. I am your host, the dreaded DM, DBJ, and I am surrounded by, RPG community's best and brightest that help me look brilliant, which I am not. I'm just an armchair fan of tabletop RPGs, primarily talking about Dungeons and Dragons. But today is Third Pillar Thursday, and for those who don't know, the third pillar of Exploration Thursday deals with the third pillar of tabletop gaming. So the first two pillars correspond to combat and social interaction, respectively. But there's this third pillar. Um, uh, Commonly known as exploration. And normally we think of exploration as, intrepid explorers, wandering the wastelands or hacking their way through jungles and diving deep into, hidden crypts and such, and all that counts as well. But I take it even further, much like a movie director. I love the concept of taking exotic locations and complex areas, environmental effects, and literally layering them into the world, thereby combining everything from a lair, puzzles, riddles, obstacles, traps, all kinds of environmental effects, all layered together, one and the same, wherever the player characters go adventuring. Okay, so we take that concept for our third pillar Thursday, third pillar of exploration. Shh, don't tell anybody. And we've been talking about like unreliable narrators, point of view, and the info dump. And we really haven't talked about the info dumping portion of our like point of view or unreliable narration. Okay. And so I thought we would, again, this week is kind of meta normally for the show, but whatever, that's where we are. So one problem with using something that's unreliable, right? So maybe the player characters talk to a dwarven emissary, and that dwarven emissary tells them about, the ins and outs and the hazards of exploring the Five Kings Mountains or something, okay? And, normally above board, that emissary tells the players what to expect. They go into the Five Kings Mountain. They start to deep dive into it. They encounter exactly what this individual told them they would encounter. Hey, there's purple worms down there. There's groups of troglodytes. I can't remember the name of the beastmen that have no eyes, whatever. Anyway, it tells them about the boulets, the land sharks that are, tunneling through the region, and all the great mind flayers. We love ourselves some mind flayers and some dark elves and et cetera, okay? The unreliable narrator, this individual might say something, and I'm pulling from yesterday, one of our absolute consummate participants in the show, Rickard, was mentioning like, you don't want to do a gotcha. So maybe the NPC describes things, or the NPC is described as someone who you would normally correspond to someone who's unreliable anyway, right? Like, oh, it's been 5 generations since I've been to the Five Kings Mountain. So don't take everything I say specifically, but with a grain of salt. Maybe these things might be there, right? No, hello there, Mr. Lindell. No. Hello to you. Yes. Maybe, just maybe, the information might be correct, but maybe it's not. Okay. So, but what about the info dumping? And we're going to get into exploration part of it. But what about the info dumping? Well, for those who don't know, info dumping is this, the info dump is this idea of like, hey, I've created this great world and I want my players to I want my players to understand how much effort it took me to develop the world that they're in. Now, we all know if you've got any age, if you're an old grognard, you don't even have to be a grognard to understand this. If you have a 60-page wiki you've created online, what's the website? World Anvil or Obsidian. Um, not Obsidian Crown. Well, I can't remember it now off the top of my head. The different world building websites that you know either paid or for free that you can go into. One's named Obsidian something. I know another one's called Mythweavers. There's tons of them out there. World Anvil is one of the largest. Okay, Obsidian Portal. Thank you very much, there, JLDM. The Obsidian Portal is one, and okay, so heck, you made a Google Doc that's like 60 pages long. I guarantee you, guarantee you, your players are not going to read it. Okay. So the only other way that you can get a captured audience is to, I don't know, read those 60 pages while they're there at the table. You don't want to do that. You don't want to info dump on them. Now, I understand that a lot of us love the introduction, the opening scenes of, say, Game of Thrones, you know, and you do the flyover of the different regions of the world, and it kind of gives you a visual Lego styled representation of each of the different locations in your world, or the narrative, the narrative flyover, right? Like the classic Lord of the Rings. I'm going to narrate the past history of this world while you see a montage of things that happened previously. You know, not that they're not bad, but it would be easy for someone like me to spend 45 minutes doing the flyover while the players are like nodding off in the background, like, okay, all right, dude, I know your world is great and it's special and it's all that. Oh, I've got a kitty. Just oh, she wants some attention. Okay. Thank you, Dead. Thank you, Dead Man. Dead Man puts into the Discord the ultimate list of 42 world building resources. Do you need help figuring out how to plan your novel? Are you looking for writing exercises that will help you develop your setting? Updated with new links October 2017, so there might be one or two that might be missing or so. Well, it just so happens. Read more. Now, of course, as we all know, the world building books and exercises and websites and blogs and all that kind of stuff more or less correspond to like novel writing, but it's the same thing, right? You're developing a world, or they help you develop a world so that you understand your characters in the world that is there, so that if you're a novel writer, then you use that as your like lowercase b Bible to develop your world. Cameron says an inverted world would be cool to make. Look up in the stars you see are city lights. Yeah, like a Dyson sphere. It's explaining here. The hard part of explaining the world is basically explaining the world, right? Like, kind of like in the movie Inception when one of the architects, I can't remember her name, Ariadne, begins bending the city and flipping it on its head and turning it upside down, and you see it, curving overhead. Which part of me was a little upset we didn't get to see it in the movie, see them actually, running and exploring a world that's been flipped on its head. But sometimes we can be attached to the world so much that we want to explain-o-vision the entire world. But one of the things about explaining a world, in especially this is considering movie talk, is you don't want to show, don't tell, right? Well, it's a little difficult to show, don't tell, since there isn't any artwork that actually describes our world. So instead, what you need to do, instead of the word show, you need to show action. So it's not, don't tell the players what's going on in your world. Give them actions about what's going on in the world. And if you've ever seen a movie that has where they're trying to foreshadow events ahead of time, have you ever heard of the term Chekhov's gun? In literature and movie and writing and novels and things of that nature, um, it is, oof, you don't want to you don't want to adventure in a Dyson sphere that's fully populated. Literally, you could have a 30-year adventure in a Dyson sphere and not explore more than 5% of the interior surface of a Dyson sphere. You would just it would be logistically impossible to explore the at least a Dyson sphere built on Earth's orbit. It would be nearly impossible to explore it, and especially, of course, finding out who built the damn thing. Um, yeah, like Cameron says, I like to write up taglines for my worlds that try to evoke curiosity rather than give info, and that's the hard part, right? Because on one hand, um, we want to give everything away, right? We want to give up the ghost, right? It's like, oh man, guys, to the east there's this, and to the west there's this, and then there's the thing in the underground, and there's the gods, and there's these other dimensions. Oh, did I tell you about the swamps? And oh, there's this, complete underwater community, and blah blah blah. You want to give all this stuff away, but you're better off foreshadowing things in the world by explaining how other people in the world interact with the thing, right? So you don't need to tell the players to be scared of, the Dark Lord. Have your NPCs be scared of the agents of the Dark Lord, to then have the players ask, why is everyone scared of these soldiers dressed in black or something? Well, they're agents of the Dark Lord when they talk to the NPC. Or the players may infer, ooh, the reach of the Dark Lord's out here because look at all the people running for their lives and running scared when, the soldiers of the Dark Lord come into town, right? Much like Lord of the Rings, when the ring wraiths came into town, they kicked the door open and of the border of the city, and they start riding in stirrup to stirrup with their dark cloaks and whatnot, and moving around the city, and everyone closes their windows and doors. Well, that kind of gives you a hint as to what the people think of ring wraiths, right? As opposed to everyone should be scared of the ring wraiths. You don't have to say that. You could just develop it. Now, the problem with that, of course, is kind of hinting off of what Cameron just mentioned about, I like to write up a tagline for the world, is leaving enough hooks for the players to want to ask for more. Because if your players ask you for more information, that's when you got permission to info dump a little bit, right? If the players are like, ooh, a city of thieves. I wonder who lives here. Are there criminals? Hey, maybe there's someone from my background. Once they start asking you questions, then you're like, all right, they're interested, um, as opposed to dumping on them first and then having the players turn their minds off to the thing. Um, yeah, like Dead Man brings up Olaf, which is a location in the Eclipse Phase world for science fiction. It says in Eclipse Phase, Olaf is a Dyson sphere around a brown dwarf with about 500 times the Earth's land area. Yeah, and if you think about it, we've never really we only live in, what is it, like, is it 30% of Earth's land area is inhabitable, because the rest of it is ocean. So actually, we haven't even discovered most of our own landmass area. Imagine it being 500 times that, and imagine it not having, being 70% ocean. It, I don't know if you guys have ever read through the RPG Ring World, based on the Larry Niven story, just a ring world, not a Dyson sphere, but a ring world. And the main characters in that story, which the game is based off of, didn't explore 2% of the ring world. And it took them forever using technology that allowed them to fly at like Mach 10. to go over the region. It's just crazy, the landmass of a construct like that. But the other thing about flowing into our third pillarisms here is to show evidence of the population, for good or bad, of their interactions with the rest of the world, right? So if storms and hurricanes and earthquakes and things like that are common in the area, show the damage, right? Much like the proverbial village that's been attacked by the by the beastmen in from the mountains. We show that the village has been devastated. PCs get there, they go, all the people are dead or something. Oh, well, here's evidence of a thing that happened. Let's go investigate, right? It's the same thing for the environment. If you want to show yesterday we started flowing into what it would be like to adventure in a war-torn world, or where there's actual open conflict between one or more nations, right? Well, what do you have? You have we talked about World War One. You would have trenches and barbed wire and no man's land and all these other kind of unexploded ordnance and that kind of thing. Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, it might be like unactivated glyphs of warding under the dirt and rusted and unactivated constructs and warforged just hanging around in leagues and leagues of war-torn space, right? You would have those things, dead bodies and all that kind of business, and the aftermath of such things happening in your world. So when it comes to using the environment or telling your players like, hey, listen, if you're going to adventure in this world, you need to watch out for things, show them evidence of things they need to watch out for. Cameron says, I feel like 70% is a comfortable amount. I want to have extra. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Deadman says, see Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets for an example of a massive world. Yeah, while the movie didn't do too well, the concept of the City of 1,000 Planets is actually a really good one. Yeah. Yeah, Rickard is like, not Friday? Yes, Friday. For those who don't know, Future Friday is our sci-fi time to explore these kind of concepts and stuff like that. And yeah, we got there a little bit too soon. But sometimes when it comes to things, especially when it comes to exploration and things being unreliable, there are ways for us to both have exploration be okay and for it to be unreliable. I bring to you, say, Planescape or Spelljammer or something, or I bring to you our own normal earthly atmosphere with things like storms and volcanoes and things of that nature. What I mean by unreliable is that you may explain to someone, hey, you're going up into the Arctic North and the adventure takes place in the frozen the frozen tundra of the Arctic North in my world. Okay. Well, maybe you absolutely intend on having blizzards. You intend on having snow